Chapter 1. A DxD Xinsha version? Tea, coffee, or soda? Sona and Rias stared in silence at the can of soda in front of them. There wasn't even a cup of tea or coffee in sight. Was this even a real choice? Sorry, looks like soda is the only thing I have. Sona, Rias. Lynn leaned back slightly on the sofa, completely ignoring their speechless expressions. Sona Citri and Rias Gremory. Having watched 2 seasons of High School DxD in his past life, Lynn was quite familiar with them. But that was about it. Since arriving in this world, he had never crossed paths with these two before. Now, they suddenly showed up at his place, leaving him utterly confused. So what brings you both here? Lynn finally asked. I'm Rias Gremory. Just call me Rias. She introduced herself briefly before glancing at Sona, signaling her to go first. Meanwhile, Rias kept staring at the soda can, hesitating whether to open it. Sona Citri. After stating her name, Sona placed a parchment on the table. Lynn's eyes narrowed slightly. The parchment was covered in dense writing but not in any human language. Demonic script. Seeing those characters made Lynn feel a bit dazed. Ever since he started living in the human world, it had been a long time since he last saw the writing of devils. And yet, Lynn's gaze shifted downward. The House of Valifer's crest. Valifera, once noble devil household in the underworld. And his full name? Lynn Valifer. This was his second life. Just a few days ago, he had fully awakened his past memories. In this life, he wasn't a pure human, he was a half-devil. But because of that very identity, he had been exiled from the Valifer family at the age of 7 and forced to live among humans. And now, trouble had found him because of that last name. That parchment? It was a marriage contract. A contract between the House of Valifer and the House of Citri. Lynn's expression turned strange. Now he understood why they had come. Normally, as a half-devil, he wouldn't even be considered for a marriage pact with the Citri family. But years ago, the Valifer family was wiped out overnight. Since he was the last surviving bloodline, he had automatically inherited this marriage contract. However, Lynn glanced at Sona Citri, who sat there with a blank expression. It was obvious she wasn't here to uphold the contract. So, she came to call off the engagement? A transmigrator getting hit with a broken engagement event? Isn't this the beginning of a Xinsha story? A DxD Xinsha version. After some thinking, Lynn got straight to the point. You want to annul the engagement. Sona and Rias both froze. They exchanged glances before Sona spoke. Apologies, but I will compensate you. There was a flicker of guilt in her eyes. After all, Lynn was the last surviving member of his family, and here she was personally coming to break off their engagement. It felt a little heartless, but she simply couldn't accept a marriage with someone she had never even met before, especially without any emotional connection. Fine, I agree. Lynn accepted without hesitation. Not because of any so-called compensation, he just didn't want to deal with unnecessary trouble. If he remembered correctly, Sona Citri had an overprotective older sister who was a freaking Maou, Devil King. He had no interest in following the battle through the Heaven script where, after breaking off the engagement, this older sister would come knocking next. Sona opened her mouth slightly, stunned by his quick agreement. She hadn't expected the annulment to go this smoothly. After all, this was an engagement with the Citri family. Anyone from the underworld would kill for such a marriage contract. Especially Lynn, a last heir of Valifer. With the Citri family's help, he could have rebuilt his family's legacy. Yet, he agreed to let it go just like that? This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She had originally planned to solve this through a rating game, expecting resistance. But now, she was at a complete loss. I didn't prepare an annulment contract, she muttered absent-mindedly. Lynn sighed. You're really bad at breaking off engagements, huh? There's a printing shop downstairs, go print one and bring it up. Oh, okay. Sona instinctively stood up. Wait, no. She shook her head and sat back down. Lynn raised an eyebrow. What now? Sona took a deep breath. I'm sorry. It's complicated. A simple contract won't work. She explained, this is my personal decision. My family does not support breaking off the engagement. Even if you agree, it won't be recognized by the 4 current Maou. She sighed inwardly. She knew exactly why her family refused to let go. During the Underworld Civil War, the Valifer family sacrificed a lot to help her sister become a Maou. This engagement was part of that agreement. But then, Valifer was wiped out overnight, which was a huge embarrassment to both the Citri family and the new Maou faction. If the Citri family canceled the marriage now, it would completely shatter their credibility. This was something only she could resolve. "So what's your plan?" Lynn asked. Sona's expression turned serious. "I challenge you to a rating game. Rating games are above all rules in the underworld. If I win—" "Stop!" Lynn interrupted her, his gaze turning cold. "You do realize why the Valifer family was wiped out, don't you?" Sona's body tensed. "A revenge attack from the old Maou faction." Lynn continued. "Then do you understand what will happen if my last name gets exposed?" Sona's heart skipped a beat. The answer was simple. He'd die. Lynn crossed his legs, his voice now completely cold. "You're really only thinking about yourself." I'm sorry." Sona looked shaken. "You're really only thinking about yourself, huh?" She repeated those words in her head. The air in the room grew heavy. Clink! A crisp sound broke the tension, drawing Lynn's attention. Sona's body relaxed slightly as Rias popped open the soda can. Rias smiled at Lynn. "I've never tried carbonated drinks before. Thought I'd give it a shot." Taking a small sip, she immediately stuck out her tongue. "I really can't get used to this." Placing the can down, she turned to Sona. "Now that you're done, it's my turn to talk." Hearing that, Sona felt a huge wave of relief and bolted upright. "Sorry for disturbing you," she blurted before rushing out, keeping her head down the entire time, not daring to look at Lynn. Rias chuckled. She had never seen Sona act like this before. Once the door closed, Rias turned back. "Apologies. Sona really didn't think this through." Lynn simply nodded. "So what do you want, Rias?" Smiling, Rias waved her hand, summoning a glowing purple magic circle. A set of chess pieces materialized on the table. "These are your evil pieces," she said. "Use them wisely and rebuild the Valifer family." With that, Rias and Sona left quickly. Just as Lynn was contemplating how to recruit his first follower, his phone suddenly buzzed. "Incoming call, Aoyama Nanami." Lynn's eyes widened. "Shit, I forgot about the half-price bento sale." Chapter 2. Anime Mashup Universe. Private Kuo Academy Occult Research Club. Rias and Sona sat across from each other. After some time, Sona had finally calmed down. She adjusted her glasses and spoke in a low voice. "Rias, this time, I was the one who made a mistake." "Sona," Rias wanted to comfort her, but Sona cut her off. Just like Lynn said, a complicated emotion flickered in Sona's eyes as she continued. "I was only thinking about myself, completely ignoring his situation." Rias was silent for a moment. Then, she took a sip of her tea and chuckled. "Now, that's the Sona I know. When others made mistakes, she would point them out without hesitation. But when she made one herself, she admitted it openly." Sona also took a sip of tea, regaining her usual composed demeanor. "So, what about your engagement?" Rias asked curiously. The plan to break off the engagement had been a complete failure. Although Lynn didn't resist the idea of breaking it off in fact, he had been rather cooperative. The result was obvious. Sona paused for a moment before saying, "Forget about the rating game. That would expose him to the old Maou faction's attention. I'll try to persuade my family myself." Rias could hear the determination in her voice and joked, "If you ask me, Lynn isn't bad at all. Why not just go along with it?" Seeing Sona fall into silence, Rias, who knew her well, was immediately surprised. "Wait, are you actually considering it?" "I didn't have a bad first impression of him," Sona admitted honestly. "If it comes down to it, I'll try to develop feelings for him." Rias' eyes widened in shock. Something was off. Something was really off. She vividly recalled Lynn's cold, indifferent gaze, his emotionless voice, and that unforgettable sentence. "You're really only thinking about yourself?" "Yes." "Sona, you're not into that kind of thing, are you? Like a masochist?" Thinking inwardly. "Into what?" Sona asked, confused. "No. Nothing at all." Rias laughed awkwardly, avoiding her gaze. "Surely not, right?" Rias began really thinking about it. Weird. Sona frowned, but didn't press the issue. Finishing her tea, she stood up to leave. All right. She reached in her pocket and pulled out a set of keys. I noticed his living conditions weren't great. The Citri family owned some property in Minato, Tokyo. This is the key to one of the apartments. If you get the chance, give it to him for me as an apology. Leaving those words behind, Sona activated a magic circle and disappeared. Rias opened her mouth but ended up swallowing the words, "Why don't you give it to him yourself?" Private Kuo Academy, student council room. A flash of red light. Sona suddenly appeared. Tsubaki, I need a bath. Yes, President. And my clothes need to be washed. Yes, President. Wait, I'll wash my own underwear. Thanks a lot for reminding me, Nanami. I'll treat you to ice cream next time. Carrying the discounted bento he had fought for, Lynn left the convenience store victorious after saying goodbye to Nanami. By the time he stepped outside, the sky had darkened. With a plastic bag in one hand, he absent-mindedly toyed with a black chess piece in the other. So, Nanami has the potential to be reincarnated as a devil too. Too bad she refused to let me implant this in her body. Lynn sighed, a bit disappointed. Can you see me? Can you see me? A cursed spirit with an unnaturally long tongue blocked Lynn's path, its sticky saliva dripping onto the pavement, producing a sizzling, corrosive sound. Lynn gave a look of pure disdain. The long-tongued spirit twitched violently. You can see me. You must be able to see me. You are. Before the spirit could enjoy this rare opportunity, a human who could see itered flames erupted from its body, instantly incinerating it into nothing. You picked the wrong target, Lynn muttered. I'm a devil, after all. His gaze swept across the other cursed spirits gathering around him. Each one trembled under his sight. Lynn shook his head and ignored them. There were simply too many of these low-level curses. He couldn't be bothered dealing with them all. Besides, after unlocking his past memories, he had kind of figured out what kind of world he was in. A real anime crossovers universe. Yep. For example, his identity. The sole heir of a devil family from the underworld, a freshman at Shuchin Academy, where his homeroom teacher was Minamiya Natsuki, and the school had a Tatsuki culinary division. Oh, and the convenience store clerk, Aoyama Nanami. And now, with all these different types of spirits infesting the streets, Lynn had a strong suspicion that this world also had a Yatsuya Miko. Lynn paused, eyes narrowing slightly. On his status screen, the ability evil, devils, chess pieces was glowing faintly. This was another function of the evil piece. If someone nearby had the potential to become his servant, it would notify him by flashing. Lynn immediately released his magic, scanning the area. A few seconds later, his eyes lit up. Found it. Pinpointing the location, he changed directions and rushed over. His potential servant wasn't in a good situation currently being chased by a devil. Yes, a devil. Not all devils were like him, ones who followed human laws. Of course, it could just be a stray devil. From what he sensed, it was only a low-class strength level. No real threat to someone like him, who was on the verge of breaking into high-class devil status. Huff, huff, huff. Heavy breathing echoed through a deserted alleyway. Kusumigakaka Utaha gritted her teeth, forcing her leaden legs to keep moving. Her black stockings were tattered, her legs covered in scrapes and bruises, but she hardly noticed. All she could do was run. Faster. Run faster. She could feel that thing behind her, chasing her, savoring the thrill of the hunt. She didn't know if she would survive, but she knew one thing. If she stopped, she would die. So faster. Bam. Suddenly, she crashed into something warm. But instead of relief, only one thought filled her mind. I'm doomed. Looks like you could use some help. Gasping for air, Utaha looked up. A handsome face came into view, but she had no time for such thoughts. Run. There's a monster behind me. She had no strength left. If not for leaning completely against this boy, she would have collapsed already. She couldn't run anymore, but he still had a chance. A monster? You mean that thing? Lynn pointed behind her, his other arm steadying her in his embrace. Utaha turned to look. A creature with the upper body of a naked woman and the lower half of a spider was drooling as it stared at her. She swallowed hard and forced a bitter smile. This close. Looks like you won't be able to escape either. Why would I run? It's just a low-class stray devil, after all. Chapter 3. Let me shove this into your body. A stray devil? Wait a second. Utaha snapped out of her thoughts and hurriedly asked, You know what this thing is? Lynn nodded. Hope flickered in Utaha's eyes. Could it be a hunter? A devil hunter? If there were stray devils in this world, then it made perfect sense for devil hunters to exist too. Right? Yes, that had to be it. She subconsciously nodded in agreement with her own logic. This woman, what the hell is she thinking? Lynn shot her a glance, then checked his status panel. It confirmed that she had the potential to become his servant. Utaha Kusumigakaka. She looked like an ordinary person, but as a character from an anime world, she had to have some hidden potential. Hey, if I help you deal with that thing, will you agree to one condition? Utaha was startled. What condition? Lynn took out an evil chess piece. Let me shove this into your body. Utaha's eyes widened in shock, her face turning red with embarrassment and anger. Are you even a proper devil hunter? Devil hunter? Lynn gave her a weird look before grinning. Nope, I'm a devil. Huh? Utaha's brain short-circuited. Food. Food. Of course, the stray devil wasn't going to wait for her to process everything. In her panic, Utaha quickly shouted, Fine, fine, fine. I agree. All right then, the contract is sealed. Lynn raised his arm. Magic surged. Boom. A crimson vortex formed around Lynn's right arm. A red pillar of light burst forth, swallowing the spider-like devil whole. The powerful shockwave sent Utaha's black hair flying wildly in the wind. A blood-curdling scream echoed within the red light. A few seconds later, the scream faded, and Lynn stopped channeling his magic. Utaha's lips trembled. What was that just now? Just a simple magic blast. Gulp. Utaha swallowed hard, shivering. Is it still Earth? That spider monster. It's dead. If we're lucky, there might be some remains left. Utaha finally relaxed, but way too soon. Now, let's talk about our deal. Lynn twirled the chess piece in front of her. Utaha instantly tensed up, looking at him in disbelief. You were serious? Of course. Devils always honor their contracts. Haha. Utaha's lips twitched. Should she run? She hesitated for a moment, but then recalled what had just happened. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. There was no way she could escape. She shut her eyes tightly, trying to mentally prepare herself. It's just like getting bitten by a mosquito. This guy is definitely a pervert. Still better than getting eaten by that monster. Damn it, my first time, and it's with a freaking chess piece. That said, he's kind of good looking. Utaha's mind was in total chaos. When she opened her eyes again, they were filled with resolve. She gripped the hem of her skirt tightly, then suddenly lifted it, shouting, Come at me. Lynn, what kind of crazy scenario was she imagining now? Do all novelists have this wild of an imagination? Though he was internally complaining, he still appreciated the view. While staring, he smirked. Even if you seduce me, I'm still going to insert it. Utaha's face burned red. She gritted her teeth. You're absolutely doing this just to humiliate me, aren't you? Wait. Utaha suddenly snapped, her eyes widening. Why are you unbuttoning my shirt? Her wine-red eyes glared daggers at him as she growled. I knew it. You're not satisfied with just using an object, you damn pervert. Hold on. Where the hell are you putting that? You'll see. This spot is perfect for inserting it. A red ripple spread across Utaha's chest as the chess piece sunk into her body. Lynn looked up and locked eyes with Utaha. It actually went in. Utaha's voice trembled. Lynn scratched his head. I think so. Utaha glared at him like he was an irresponsible deadbeat dad. Lynn shrugged. Hey, this is my first time too. I've got no experience. Then take responsibility, you bastard. Thump, thump, thump. Utaha suddenly froze as her heartbeat rapidly accelerated. Heat surged through her body, and an overwhelming power welled up from within. Now what? Utaha looked panicked. Lynn thought for a moment. Probably The reincarnation process? Probably? Again, ding. Congratulations. You have gained a servant. Utaha Kasumigakaka. Ding. Your servant, Utaha Kasumigakaka, is undergoing the reincarnation ceremony. Ding. Your servant, Utaha Kasumigakaka, has reincarnated as a special devil, archivist devil. Ding. You have obtained the skill Archivist Devil. Chapter 4. Archivist Devil? Archivist Devil? Lynn's eyes lit up. The moment Utaha Kasumigakaka became his servant, his physical abilities and magical power saw a significant boost. It felt as if he had broken through some kind of barrier, smoothly advancing to the rank of a high-class devil. Seeing that Utaha's transformation wasn't quite finished yet, Lynn opened his status panel. Lynn Valifer. Race, Devil. Rank, High-Class Devil. Authority, None. Servants, Utaha Kasumigakaka. Skills, Devil Piece, Devil Contract. Magic Release, Archivist Devil. Lynn confirmed his rank before focusing on the new skill, Archivist Devil. Archivist Devil. Devil's Grimoire. Capable of recording magic, sorcery, and other abilities, which can then be cast through the grimoire. The more detailed the recorded information, the more complete the ability's replica. Devil Assimilation. The user's body merges with the devil's grimoire, allowing them to embody and channel everything recorded within. Accelerated magic growth. Seems like a pretty good skill. Lynn studied the description carefully, feeling that it had a lot of potential. Wait, this is... On the other side, Utaha's reincarnation ritual had concluded. She stood there, staring blankly at a thick, floating book. The book was pitch black, giving off a metallic sheen, and looked incredibly heavy. Hold on. Lynn took her grimoire. As Utaha's master, and since he possessed the archivist devil skill himself, her grimoire was essentially linked to his. He opened a blank page, pulled a pen from his pocket, and after giving her chest a rather intense look, lowered his head and began writing in the book. Utaha's cheeks instantly burned. That's when she realized she was still completely exposed. Flustered, she quickly adjusted her clothing and nervously scanned the surroundings. Only after confirming no one else was around did she finally breathe a sigh of relief. As for Lynn, well, he probably doesn't count as human. Besides, he'd already seen everything anyway. Utaha muttered to herself. All done. Lynn finished writing and handed the grimoire back to her. She took it curious. Utaha Kasumigakaka. Rank, Low-Class Devil. Race, Devil. Master, Lynn Valifer. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Endurance, I0. Magic, I0. Innate skill, Archivist Devil. Devil's Grimoire. Capable of recording magic, sorcery, and other abilities, which can then be cast through the grimoire. The more detailed the recorded information, the more complete the ability's replica. Devil Assimilation. The user's body merges with the devil's grimoire, allowing them to embody and channel everything recorded within. Accelerated magic growth. Staring at her own status, Utaha's tone became somewhat complicated. So, I'm not human anymore. Congratulations. Utaha shot her master a glare at his sarcastic remark before sighing in resignation. What else could she do? At the very least, being a devil didn't feel bad. Chapter 5. I'm going to your place. Kasumigakaka Utaha's eyes widened in shock, her pupils flashing with disbelief. That damn evil devil Lynn. He actually pushed Heron innocent, beautiful girl straight into danger without hesitation, leaving her to face the cursed spirit alone. She wanted to curse him out, but as the spirit loomed closer, a wave of fear gripped her heart. There was no time to scold Lynn now. What do I do? What do I do? Wait, the devil's grimoire. She was a devil now. A mere cursed spirit shouldn't dare underestimate her. With newfound resolve, she snapped open the devil's grimoire, ready to unleash its full power. Smack! Utaha slammed the grimoire shut. The clean, blank pages staring back at her filled her with despair. She had just become an archivist devil. She hadn't recorded any abilities yet. You can see me. The cursed spirit's guttural shriek was right next to her. Its rancid breath blasted against her face, making her long black hair flutter. Her mind went blank. Stay away from me. Acting purely on instinct, she swung the grimoire with all her might. Boom! A powerful shockwave ripped through the alley. The swing of Utaha. The mighty skill of the Utaha activated. It was super effective. Aakak. The cursed spirit let out a final shriek before disintegrating into nothing. Utaha cautiously opened one eye. Seeing the cursed spirit completely gone, she gasped in disbelief. Did I just do that? Nice work, Utaha. Lynn strolled up beside her, giving an encouraging nod. Utaha let out a sigh of relief only to glare at him with resentment. Lynn, on the other hand, felt no guilt whatsoever. Come on, as a servant, wasn't it only natural for her to grind levels and power him up? Did she really expect him to do all the work? Besides, there was no way he'd actually let her die. These spirits were weak. Even if Utaha stood still and did nothing, they probably wouldn't even be able to scratch her. She was a lower-class devil now. After all, how do you feel? Utaha shot him another glare, then took a deep breath to compose herself. Regaining her usual grace, she replied, Not bad. Lynn chuckled. If he hadn't just witnessed her flailing around in panic, he might have actually believed her. Since it's not bad, why not keep going and chase these spirits? Utaha was dumbfounded. Just kidding. Utaha gave him a deadpan look. That didn't sound like a joke at all. Lynn ignored her complaints. For today, just get used to things. Starting tomorrow, we'll officially begin leveling up. Utaha's eye twitched, but she said nothing. Lynn turned and started walking out of the alley. Utaha instinctively followed. As they stepped onto the main street, Lynn tilted his head slightly and gestured forward with his chin. Tell me, don't you want to get stronger? Utaha followed his gaze. The streets were swarming with cursed spirits. Some were standing, others crouching. Each had a hideous and eerie posture, and every single one of them was asking the same question to the passing pedestrians. Can you see me? Utaha opened her mouth, then fell silent for a long moment before finally muttering, Has Japan already fallen? Cursed spirits. So many cursed spirits. These ones and the one you just defeated are nothing more than low-tier grunts. Low-tier. Utaha clenched her fists. She understood what Lynn meant. If these are the weak ones, then there had to be stronger ones out there. Besides, it wasn't like she had a choice anymore. She wasn't human now. She was a devil, and one with a master at that. Closing her eyes briefly, she took a deep breath. When she opened them again, they were filled with determination. Understand. She turned to face him properly. Please, make me stronger, Lynn. Lynn suddenly remembered something and smirked playfully. What should you be calling me now? Utaha paused, then looked at him with disgust. Perverted master. Lynn took a moment to process it. Not bad. Even with the perverted part, it had a certain charm to it. Pulling out his phone, he said, Let's exchange line contacts. It'll make things easier. Utaha gave him a weird look after seeing his icon's name. Sigma Man. A notification popped up. Yutako has joined the group chat. Seeing the message, Utaha raised an eyebrow. What's this? Our servant chat group. I get that, but what's with the group name? Utaha held up her phone, showing the name Lynn's Familia harem group. The words burned into her eyes. Lynn looked confused. What? Isn't it accurate? Utaha was left speechless. How was he saying this with such confidence? Seeing her expression, Lynn seemed to realize something. Relax. You're my first servant, so for now, I'm all yours. Consider it a privilege of being the first. Who the hell wants that kind of privilege? Utaha felt like she was burning through all her energy just from arguing with him. Still, she had to admit was right about one thing. She was his first servant. If he ever got more servants in the future, that meant she would be their senior. If this really turned into a harem, then she, without question, would be the head wife. Utaha's lips curled slightly. Wait, no. Why the hell was she even thinking about that? She quickly shook her head, pushing those weird thoughts away. Damn it, it was all because of this ridiculous group chat name. After exchanging contacts, Lynn stretched. All right, it's getting late. Time to head home. Utaha hesitated, then glanced at the cursed spirits roaming the streets. Are you sure I'll be okay? She was a little worried she might get killed on the way back. Relax. As long as you pretend you can't see them, they won't attack. Utaha blinked. So regular people really can't see them? That explained why the spirits were everywhere, yet no one on the street seemed to care. Thinking back, before she became a devil, she hadn't been able to see them either. But now that she knew they had always been there, the thought sent shivers down her spine, especially the ones sitting on people's heads. If you're still scared, I could walk you home, Lynn offered. Consider it another privilege of being my first servant. Lynn actually wasn't entirely joking, wasn't too comfortable letting Utaha go off alone just yet. Sure, she had the power of a lower-class devil and a unique ability as an archivist devil. But she had zero experience. Accidents could happen. No need. Utaha refused immediately. Before Lynn could ask why, she continued, I'm going to your place. Lynn, she hadn't turned ugly, nor did her body mutate into something grotesque like that other spider devil. In fact, she clenched her fist. Her body felt powerful. And then there was this devil's grimoire, an actual supernatural artifact straight out of fantasy. With all these benefits, she found herself quickly accepting the reality of her transformation, maybe even feeling a little excited to test her newfound strength. But first, what do these I0 values for strength, agility, and endurance mean? Lynn explained, those are your ability stats. Though slightly different from the DanMachi system, the general logic remained the same. Ability stats rank from I to S, with each tier covering values from 0 to 99, 100 to 199, and so on. S rank ranged from 900 to 999. There were also rare cases where someone could exceed S rank, reaching SS or even SSS. Lynn's system functioned much like the DanMachi one except for differences in rank names, the absence of a magic slot, and the lack of development abilities. After a brief explanation, Utaha nodded in understanding. So, basically, grind levels to get stronger? Yeah, she got it. So, where do we go to farm EXP? Her eyes gleamed with excitement. Supernatural abilities? Who could possibly resist that? She needed to fight something. Now, maybe right here. Lynn pointed toward the alleyway's entrance. The recent burst of magic had incidentally evaporated spirits lurking in the alley. Now that the alley had lost its dominant spirit, weaker spirits were swarming in, eager to claim the territory. Following his gaze, Utaha's expression twitched. What the hell are those things? She stared at the grotesque, misshapen spirits with tongues dragging across the ground, a shiver running down her spine. Yeah, they're definitely monsters technically called spirits. Spirits? So they're literally ghosts? Before she realized it, Utaha had instinctively moved behind Lynn at lightning speed. Lynn, I thought you wanted to grind levels? He grabbed her and pulled her back in front. Utaha immediately clung to his arm. I wasn't ready yet. You can see me? You can see us. Oh, looks like one of them noticed you. Lynn calmly freed himself from the softness pressing against his arm. With a warm smile, he gave her a gentle push forward. Go get him, Utaha. Chapter 7. It's all on you, Utaha Beast. The location of Kuo Academy wasn't exactly close to Tokyo's Minato Zone. Lynn and Utaha spent over 2 hours on the train before finally arriving at Kuo Town. This long journey only made Lynn even more envious of Rias's teleportation magic, which was shown in the anime. Utaha curiously observed her surroundings. So, where exactly are we going? To a devil family's territory. Utaha stopped in her tracks, staring at him in shock. A devil family's territory? Her movements instantly became more cautious. She lowered her voice and whispered, Are you sure it's okay for us to just say it like this? Seeing her acting so sneaky, Lynn reassured her, Relax, I have a pretty decent relationship with the people in charge here. Well, probably. That's good to know. Utaha let out a breath of relief, though she still seemed a bit uneasy. After all, they were dealing with actual devils. So far, the only devil she had encountered aside from that stray devil was Lynn. She had no idea what other devils were like. At the front gates of Kuo Academy, A girl with long black hair tied into a high ponytail, nearly reaching the ground, stood quietly by the entrance. The moment she saw Lynn, her eyes lit up. She quickly walked over, clasped her hands in front of her skirt, and greeted them with a gentle smile. "You must be Mr. Lynn. I'm Akino Himejima, a servant of the president. She asked me to escort you. Thanks for the trouble, Akino-san." Stare. Utaha couldn't take her eyes off Akino's figure. That body was just unreal. She glanced down at herself. She had always been pretty confident, but in this matchup, she had to admit she lost. Completely. Noticing Utaha's gaze, Akino simply smiled softly. But, almost imperceptibly, she straightened her back just a little more, making Utaha even more frustrated. After teasing Utaha a bit, Akino led them toward the Occult Research Club located in the old school building. Along the way, she gave them a guided tour of Kuo Academy, preventing any awkward silences between them. The Occult Research Club president, Mr. Lin, has arrived. Rias flipped her vibrant crimson hair as she stood up from the couch to welcome them. "Lin, welcome to Kuo Town." She put on the demeanor of a gracious host, smiling warmly. "Since you've come all this way, let's sit down and chat first. Akino, prepare some tea for our guests." "Yes, President." As Utaha sat down, she noticed a petite girl in the corner of the sofa. Rias introduced her. "This is my servant, Kaneko Tojo. She's still in the middle school." "Nice to meet you, senpais." Kaneko greeted them with a monotone voice. Lin took a look around, admiring the luxurious decor. Then something struck him. "Rias, you only have 2 servants?" Rias paused for a moment before brushing her hair behind her ear with a small smile. "That's right. I prefer quality over quantity, so it's difficult to find suitable members." Lin pondered. No Kiba Yudo or the others? Was it because they hadn't been recruited yet? Or was this some kind of butterfly effect due to the crossover setting? "This girl must be your servant, then?" Rias's gaze shifted to Utaha. She had only just sent the evil piece yesterday, yet today, Lin already had a servant. They must have been close beforehand, Rias speculated. No sacred gear fluctuations. No signs of any training. She seems like a completely ordinary human. Utaha Kusamagakaka. Utaha introduced herself confidently, but her eyes inevitably drifted toward Rias's chest. This master-servant duo. Her expression turned complicated. Then she glanced at Kaneko, and finally, she felt a little better. "Kaneko. Cat instincts, on high alert. I already know why you're here." After all, they had communicated over the phone yesterday. Understanding that Lin had never received formal training in the Underworld's devil system, Rias pulled out an incredibly thick, black leather-bound book. It was about the size of 2 bricks stacked together. Lin's eyelids twitched. "This is 360 applications of magic, a standard guide in the underworld. It contains basic magical techniques." Rias offered a slight apology. "Sorry, but I can only provide general techniques for now. More advanced skills are usually exclusive to each devil family." Lin nodded in understanding. "This is more than enough. Just this one book alone would take a long time to go through. Good thing he had a labor force." Lin pushed 360 applications of magic toward Utaha with a smile. "It's all on you, Utaha beast." A big question mark practically appeared over Utaha's head. Also, what the hell was with that weird nickname? She wanted to complain, but since they were on someone else's turf, she had no choice but to swallow her frustration. She turned to the massive book in front of her, feeling an impending headache. Well, at least she didn't need to understand it. She didn't even need to learn it. All she had to do was record it. Utaha gritted her teeth. "Fine. Time to copy." Chapter 8. Time to show off, Rias. After obtaining what he wanted, Lin didn't rush to leave. Instead, he took the opportunity to ask Rias about the current situation in the underworld. For example, the movements of the old Maou faction. Though Lin didn't feel any particular attachment to the House of Valifer, nor did he have any intention of avenging them, the fact that he carried this surname was bound to bring him trouble sooner or later, like his engagement with the Citri clan and the revenge of the old Maou faction. He needed to prepare in advance. While recruiting his own peerage and strengthening his power, he also had to keep an eye on their movements to avoid ending up like his unfortunate family wiped out before they even knew what hit them. At the end of the day, it all boiled down to a lack of strength. He needed to speed up his recruitment. At the very least, he had to reach the level of a Maou as soon as possible. Ever since the Valifer extermination incident, the underworld has intensified its crackdown on the old Maou faction. They haven't been seen for quite some time now. Rias shared the latest intelligence while glancing at Utaha, who was busy scribbling away. That book, it doesn't look like an artifact. More like some kind of ability. Rias couldn't help but remind, "You're welcome to take that book with you. It's not exactly classified information." Lynn took a sip of the tea brewed by Akino and said casually, "No worries, she has to copy it down anyway." Even though Utaha had only been copying for a short while, Lynn could already feel an influx of magical knowledge about power manipulation filling his mind. What's more, he realized that his archivist devil ability was different from Utaha's. For instance, while Utaha needed her devil's grimoire to utilize recorded abilities, he could use them directly. It was as if the archivist devil state was permanently active for him. Didn't that mean his awakened abilities granted him some sort of additional perks? Completely absorbed in his newfound insights, Lynn didn't notice the dagger-like glare Utaha was sending his way. Easy for him to say while sitting there comfortably. This was nearly 2,000 pages long. The thought of her bleak future filled with endless copying made the light in Utaha's eyes completely fade. Why'd it have to be an archivist devil? Such deep resentment. Rias looked at Utaha, slightly worried. Is she really okay? Lynn noticed Utaha's pitiful expression and couldn't help but chuckle before turning to Rias. "Miss Rias, does this book contain any spells related to automatic writing?" Utaha's head snapped up, her eyes brimming with desperate hope as she stared at Rias. "There is one." Rias nodded and thought for a moment before adding, "I believe it's around page 130. Rustle." The sound of frantic page-turning filled the air. Seeing this, Lynn took another sip of tea, content with his good deed. He really was too kinda simply couldn't bear to see his servant suffer. "Found it!" Utaha exclaimed in delight. Rias smiled at her reaction and said, "This spell is fairly simple. If you want, I can give you some guidance while you learn it." Utaha flashed her a polite smile. "Thank you, but I don't think that will be necessary." She bowed her head once more and resumed writing in the Devil's Grimoire. Rias blinked in surprise before glancing at Lynn. Didn't they ask about the spell to make copying easier? Why is she still writing it out by hand? All done. Utaha set her pen down, stretched, and then activated her magic with a look of anticipation. Buzz! The Devil's Grimoire suddenly radiated a dazzling light. On the page where auto-writing was recorded, a small white magic circle emerged. A delicate white quill materialized in midair. It worked. Utaha cheered inwardly. It was real magic. Even though it was just a minor spell, it was still enough to make her excited. This is... Rias' eyes narrowed slightly. Indeed, it was the auto-writing spell. Did she master it just from copying it down? Or was the key factor the act of transcribing itself? And that strange grimoire. Rias had many thoughts racing through her mind as her eyes gleamed with curiosity. She then smiled and praised, "I didn't expect Utaha-san to master auto-writing so quickly. Lin-san's servant is quite remarkable." Then, with a subtle shift in tone, she continued, "If I remember correctly, Lin-san's residence is quite far from Kuo town. There's a teleportation spell on page 777. How about learning it now and setting up a marker here? That way, traveling will be more convenient." Utaha's performance had piqued Rias' interest. She wanted to see whether Utaha's quick mastery was due to exceptional talent or something else entirely. The teleportation spell on page 777 was a standard underworld technique, but its difficulty rivaled some noble, bloodline-exclusive magic. Even she had spent a significant amount of time mastering it. She didn't believe Utaha could learn it in such a short span. Lynn immediately saw through her intentions, but he didn't interfere. In fact, he even encouraged it. "Go, Utaha. Despite only being with him for a little over a day, Utaha already understood what Lynn was implying. She flipped the book to page 777. Without hesitation, the white quill started recording. Rias didn't have to wait long. As soon as the quill stopped, Utaha, following Lynn's signal, activated her magic. Buzz, a massive purple magic circle, dozens of times larger than before, appeared above the devil's grimoire. Its intricate runes were enough to make one's head spin. At least, Utaha had no idea what they meant. But that didn't matter. She didn't need to understand them. This was the power of the archivist devil. Rias stared at the magic circle, momentarily stunned. Her eyes reflected utter disbelief. She actually mastered it, and in such a short amount of time. Even Akino and Kaneko were drawn in. As Rias' servants, they were well aware of how difficult this spell was. A newly reincarnated devil, with no prior exposure to the supernatural world, had managed to grasp a high-difficulty spell in mere moments. If this was pure talent, it would be considered heaven-defying. But clearly, Utaha hadn't learned the spell in the traditional sense. Ria's gaze fell on the devil's book, a smirk forming on her lips. What an interesting ability. Transcription? Or perhaps record and replicate. As long as she records knowledge in that book, she can use it. Lynn clapped. As expected of the esteemed heiress of the Gremory family figuring out Utaha's ability so quickly. Let me formally introduce you. Archivist Devil, Kasumigakake Utaha. Archivist Devil. Rias murmured before remarking, a fitting title. Taking a deep breath, she asked, I wonder, Lin-san, just how far this ability can go. Lin propped his chin on his hands and smirked. The limit, huh? I'm not entirely sure. Why don't you test it out yourself? A mere book on magic techniques wasn't nearly enough to satisfy him. Time to show off, Rias. Chapter 9. Magic Restoration? I see. So that's why you had Utaha-san showcase her ability. Rias finally understood, casting a complicated look at Lin. Lin wore a smug expression, as if saying, you got me. A mere common magic technique wasn't nearly enough to satisfy him. He had flipped through that black-covered book earlier. Too much theoretical knowledge. A lot of repeated content, long-winded and tedious. As for the magic spells inside, most were basic like auto-writing. The most valuable one was probably teleportation magic, but there were barely any powerful, wide-range, or highly practical spells. Since he was already here, Lin naturally wanted to score some high-level skills. So when he noticed Rias's growing curiosity about Utaha's ability, he seized the opportunity to push things further. Might as well take a shot, who knows what he could get. To be honest, Rias had taken the bait completely. She was genuinely curious about how far Utaha's archivist devil ability could go. With a helpless smile, Rias sighed. All right, you win. Akino, bring me the lightning magic scroll. Yes, President. Akino didn't hesitate. She never questioned Rias's decisions. Lightning magic. Rias slid a parchment scroll toward Lin. This is an ultimate class spell, the most advanced magic I currently possess. Lightning? Lin casually glanced at Akino. If he remembered correctly, her specialty was lightning-based magic. Rias was really offering up something precious. Lin unrolled the scroll and skimmed through it. Yeah, he had no clue what it meant. Instantly losing interest, he handed it off to Kasumigakake Utaha. Your turn, Utaha Beast. This time, Utaha didn't even react to his nickname. She eagerly took the scroll. Whoa, ultimate class magic. Just the name alone sounded powerful. She was seriously impressed with Lin now. In just a few words, he got the Devil Princess to hand over an ultimate class spell. Suppressing her excitement, she opened the scroll. Dense, incomprehensible text swam before her eyes, making her dizzy. Yeah, no idea what any of this means, but she knew exactly what to do. Just copy it. As she transcribed, Rias explained what ultimate class magic meant. In simple terms, it referred to spells capable of unleashing power on par with a Maou. Done. Utaha stared at the freshly written text in her devil's grimoire, eager to try it out. She instinctively began channeling magic. Wait! Rias's eye twitched, stopping her just in time. Lightning magic is too destructive. Let's move outside first. She had nearly witnessed the destruction of the Occult Research Club. Realizing her mistake, Utaha awkwardly laughed. Sorry. Rias shook her head. It's fine. She then led the way outside. Behind the Occult Research Club, in open space, Utaha's Devil's Grimoire floated in front of her, pages flipping rapidly with a flurry of rustling sounds. Lightning strike, Utaha called out firmly. The pages of the grimoire froze on a specific spell. A 1-meter-wide blue magic circle formed in the air. Crackle. Without hesitation, a thick blue lightning bolt about the size of an oak tree blasted forward. Boom! The lightning struck the ground, leaving behind a 1-meter-wide crater. Electric sparks slithered across the ground, crackling like restless serpents. So powerful. Utaha stared at the scene in disbelief, barely registering that she had cast the spell herself. But she suddenly felt exhausted. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed backward straight into a firm yet warm embrace. Lynn caught her, quickly assessing her condition. It looks like she overexerted herself and completely drained her magic. Rias stepped forward, examining Utaha before glancing at the crater. She should still be a low-class devil, right? That last spell probably drained all her magic power. She stole another glance at the exhausted Utaha and then at the crater in the ground. Although the spell's power wasn't fully unleashed due to her low magic reserves, the technique itself was flawlessly executed. No cost, no sacrifices, just recording the spell's information and casting it. And given what she had seen, ultimate class magic wasn't even the limit of this recording ability. Wasn't this a bit too overpowered? Suppressing her swirling thoughts, Rias looked at the limp Utaha, still leaning against Lynn, and suggested, "Why don't you restore her magic, Lynn? Seems like that's the only option." Magic restoration? How is that supposed to work? With her magic completely depleted, Utaha could barely speak. She struggled to open her eyes, wanting to see how this magic restoration worked. Then, she saw Lynn's face getting closer. Wait, something's not right. Her lips were suddenly sealed by something warm. Her body felt so hot, and something was flowing into her